How do Protestants come to know truth about God and religion? The obvious answer is, they go by the Bible. But here's a somewhat ridiculous question. What even is the Bible? And where did it come from? How do we know what's supposed to be in it? See, the Bible didn't fall down from heaven with a table of contents and binding. The word Bible means library, so we have to ask ourselves what books are supposed to be in the library. Catholics have a very straightforward view on how we can determine what books belong in the Bible. We believe that Christ himself started the Catholic Church, and it thus has authority to determine which books are inspired scripture. The Protestant view is, well, that's the thing. They really don't have any way of telling. They simply took the Catholic Church's canon, removed the deuterocanonical books because they didn't think that they were inspired, then presented their Bible. This leaves a multitude of questions for Protestants. First, how can you tell which books are inspired by God and which ones aren't? They've rejected the two deferrable sources that they could use to rest their claims on, the first being tradition, and the second being an infallible authoritative church. They don't believe that tradition is a reason to leave the Bible unchanged, since they did so during the Reformation by moving the deuterocanonical books to the appendix of the Bible, and then again as late as the 1800s by removing these books altogether. So they can't use the claim that their Bible is correct because of it being rooted in tradition. Second, they of course reject any central church authority, so no institution is capable of making dogmatic pronouncements on such matters in their eyes. And this carries a whole host of sub-problems with it. If the Bible is the only source of doctrine, and the Bible never says which books are supposed to be in it, how can we know any doctrine? Since Bible means library, I'm going to use the analogy of a library as we might see it today. Let's suppose that you went to a town that you hadn't been to before, and a friend told you that the library on 5th Street was supernatural. Every book in this library contained nothing but truth, and you were sure to never read anything false in this library. You begin to read about the history of the library, and you figure out that for over 1,000 years, there was a set amount of books. Then, after 1,000 years, a group of people decided that they didn't think certain books belonged in the library, and they moved them to a back room. It stayed like this for another 300 years, and then these books were removed entirely. Of course, this makes you wonder several things. Why would anyone consider the library infallible if books had to be removed from it? Supposing that the false books were only in the library due to human error, then this raises the question, how do we as fallible humans know which books are supposed to be in the library? To take this a step further into the Protestant view, let's suppose that the library says that we can't know anything about it outside the books contained within its walls. If we can't know anything about the library outside of the library, and the library has nothing inside it that lists what books it's supposed to have, then what's the use of calling it infallible? The Catholic view of the library is much more smooth. We believe that truth incarnate established the library, and you could view the church as the people who work at the front desk. They help people navigate it and answer questions about the books inside. Truth incarnate, also known as Jesus, gave us the promise that the library would always be correct, and likewise, we've never changed which books were in it. The final question for Protestants: what's stopping the Christian community as a whole from removing more books from the Bible? There's no source we can defer to, and tradition isn't a reason to leave the Bible unchanged. So why can't I start my own church that has as its only canonical books the Gospel according to Mark, 2 Timothy, and the Chronicles of Narnia? If I were to do that, under a Protestant view, there's no church authority that can tell me I'm wrong, there's no tradition that needs to be upheld, and there's nothing that can be demonstrated or cited to show the errancy of my actions.